Joe, what do you get when you mix birth control pills with LSD?
What?
A trip with no kids. Joe, where do you find a dog with no legs? Wherever you left him.
Oh, that reminds me, my dog
They're
with no legs.
they're getting married in the spring. Hey, this is Jacques.
I'm Joe.
Welcome to Carnival Personnel.
No.
And this is our post-Valentine's Day thing. Joe was just regaling me with his tales of romance.
I don't want to brag, but I got my wife a flower. Thank you.
Nice. Because he lives near a graveyard and he walked home and there was some fresh. They just leave him right there. What are you supposed to do?
Exactly.
Not take them?
They're not going to need them. They're not going to miss them.
Exactly. I want to lose out on this deal. So right into the fat shaming. Last week I had announced down 14 pounds, down another, sadly only 1 pound this week. But it is
plateaued.
Valentine's Day. And seriously, the week before when I went skating was the first time I really pushed and did something called crossovers and these stops and starts drill. Whatever ligament or muscle, on the inside part of both knees for 3-4 days. I couldn't work out. I could barely move. It was pathetic. And, and we talked about it a little bit. I also will like to thank, the F&H guys, especially, Biff, really going out of his way to help with the fat shaming. One of the guys sent a clip out and All-Star said, it was this weird clip, kind of looked a little Blair Witchish. He goes, when I see these, I always expect to see, Jacques in the background, tied up in a couple of Spider-Man's, webs. And which Biff went out of his way to say, one Spider-Man web can usually hold up a car. So yeah, 2 for Jacques makes sense. So keep that kind of, and then Biff went well out of his way to point out, no, he did not call me fat. He just,
Yeah, he implied.
So which I definitely need. Still not doing the soda, but eating a little more snacks this week. I'm blaming it on Valentine's. Just Valentine's Day, eating my feelings.
You were blaming it on Valentine's Day, which was yesterday, and you bought these on the way here.
Shut up. But, I'm just thinking of other people. Think about all the Hungarian kids in Hungary. So we're going to start on a sad, kind of somber note. Are you as verklempt as I am over the Mars rover?
No, but I do know what you're talking about, and I was very melancholy about the whole thing, and just it was only expected to last 6 months,
6 to 8 months, yeah,
and then it took 15 years, 17 years. Was Dr. Ross Salowich involved in this?
No, but he was working at JPL, which is part of NASA, Jet Propulsion Laboratories in Pasadena, California, when it did go up. And his brother, who's a pretty funny guy, remember the first Mars rover crashed, and he ended up going and buying a Mars rover, figurine, action figure, exo-knifing, taking out of the package, destroying it, lighting it on fire, putting it back in, sealing it perfectly, and giving it to Ross as a
fantastic.
That was great. But it was very. And did you see the last transmission?
What was it my battery is low?
It's getting dark.
And it's right. I'm so cold.
It's oh my God, seriously, whoever programmed it to say that, you heartless, they must have just watched WALL-E, or did WALL-E come out around that time?
No, WALL-E came out while it was on Mars. But of course, how can you not think of WALL-E when you read that story of the poor Mars rover? They lost transmission, months ago? And it's presumed dead. I mean, I guess there was an ice storm that hit, or a big windstorm that knocked its sensors off, or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a big science guy. I'm just an unfrozen caveman.
You think about What a leap in technology. The fact that we were able to send something to another planet that lasted that long. I mean, and I'm not being funny. How many 15-year-old cars are on the road today?
Yeah.
You know, with mechanics and with regular oil changes and stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
All right. Well, to be fair, their mechanics were NASA. So
yeah, that's true. But and then I saw, like, you know, an artist drawing of looking down the road when people land there, and it's like, you know, the two first people like landing there, and it's just it's like telescopy eyeballs are like sticking out, like it's been buried by sandstorms at that point. And
yeah, well, you know, we'll see when. How are we getting there now? Is it Elon Musk's company, or is it
well, he's putting people in Teslas apparently,
right,
and
in spacesuits
and firing them off. So
yeah, right. We'll
any
see.
day now.
And yeah, right. We'll see.
Would you do that? I mean,
no.
I mean, that's what it's a year to get there.
Just a year?
I think it's a year there.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
I guess so. Yeah.
and but then a year back, you know, or how long you would be down there. And you thought driving with me to California was a long fucking trip,
Right. I mean, I imagine, like, you know, driving there with your family, and then you're almost there, and the kids are yelling in the back, and you're like, you know, if you yell one more time, I'm turning the spaceship around.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine driving with, you know, not your family? Your family is lovely. Mm-hmm. Let's say my family,
which is lovely as well.
You know, okay, you're in a spaceship. I don't care how big it is. With my mom and my two soul-sucking children, how long until you just go into the airlock and take the easy way out?
Ironically, you would put your mother-in-law where your kids would sit, and your kids in the mother-in-law seat.
Yeah, pretty.
You know what I'm talking about? The car of the future bubble. With the
the back
and the mother-in-law, white men writing comedy. Anyway,
so the notorious RGB is back to work this week.
Good
and none too soon. Mm-hmm. It literally talk about outliving expectancy. She's making the Mars rover look like a sissy at this point.
By the way, it's RB.
That's what I said.
You say RG.
Shut it.
It's actually written down here.
I know it's written wrong. Good thing I looked down at my own notes
and still read it wrong.
Yeah, well, you know,
RGB is a television. Like, it's like red, green, blue.
And Roy G. Biv.
Yeah, Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow. Blue, indigo, violet.
And thanks for tuning into the Primary Color Podcast. Green. Moving on. The Grammys were this week.
Yeah.
Do you give a fuck at all?
I love my Grammy. Don't you?
My Grammy's dead.
So is mine, actually.
There you go. Both.
I still love her.
Yeah, there you go. That's where you got the flower.
Right. Bring it on back.
Seriously, when is the last time? Has Weird Al ever been up for a Grammy?
He actually just won one.
This time around?
Yeah.
So you do give a fuck?
Barely. He won a fifth Grammy. He's won five Grammys now. He had won 4. But this year he was up for Best Special Edition packaging design, which was like, you know, obviously a technical Grammy, because he had put out his compilation album called The Squeeze Box, which was LPs of all of his studio albums, which was packaged in a kind of a life-size accordion case. So like each record had its own little sleeve inside this accordion case. So he won that with 2 other people who actually did the design, and he did his acceptance speech. And he said, you know, I'm all about playing the long game. And really, this 40-year music career was just so I could win a Grammy for best design of a special edition packaging for art design. And then he he had the other 2 people speak, and it was very nice. But yes, he's won Grammys because he's an artiste. He's a company.
Can you tell me what the other Grammys were for?
I think best comedy, spoken word, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I don't know all of his Grammys, but I do know that he's won 5, which is 5 more than you. So take that.
I'm not mocking. That's amazing.
Of course.
But Yeah, I don't know the last time. Even when I was in LA, there was a couple times I could have gone to the Grammys, and I just have no desire.
I mean, the Grammys are the yearly reminder that you are old. Who are these people?
No, it's funny because I remember, God, this is going back a while ago. It was like 10 years ago, like, best rock album of the year was by one of these, like, Foreigner. Like, put
By the
out,
way,
like, an album.
10 years ago, that was last rock album of the year because there were no others afterward.
There really aren't. And I know now we sound old. My day, I mean, there are no real rock bands.
No.
No.
Rock is jazz. Sorry, folks. Rock is jazz now.
Moving on to the Oscars, which isn't for another week away, but it's interesting. There are 4 categories that the Oscar people have announced that they're not going to be televising. They're going to be...
Well, they're not going to televise the awards live. They're for sort of cinematography, sound editing, film editing, and makeup and hair. And I guess the compromise is they're going to present them during the commercials. And they're going to then show a compilation edit later in the broadcast, sort of like the greatest hits of the most boring awards.
Well, what's interesting is the Oscars are on ABC, which is owned by Disney. And those 4 categories, and I know it's a complete coincidence, are the only 4 categories where Disney isn't nominated for something. Complete coincidence.
Hey, it's good to be the king.
Yeah, no shit. A lot of planning goes into making a coincidence. So, yeah, but they got.
Why not just trim out some of the people from In Memoriam? If they want to save time.
Yeah, right. Hey, those people want to be part of the Oscars. They wouldn't have died.
Right.
What? So, BVS.
Blue, violet, and Shinola.
Not talking about Batman versus Superman, which really great movie. It really is, especially director's cut. I'm talking the new BVS battle that is raging on. Boy Scouts versus Girl Scouts.
What?
Yes.
Oh, wait, BVS?
Well, B as in boys BVG. Sorry.
Okay.
But anyways, I'm
Here
all
we
over
are
now.
with the letters.
Shut up. But the Boy Scouts, a little while back, announced that they're going to open enrollment to girls as well, which the Girl Scouts were kind of up in arms about, and kind of rightfully so. Just Boy Scout enrollment is so down. I mean, they've taken a lot of hits, and rightfully so, over the last couple decades. I know you and your children is still involved in Scouts or was?
They were.
And my stepdad was huge in Scouts with his son, like, back, way back. And, I don't have any, personal beef with it, but, letting girls in to make up for their declining numbers is going head to head with the Girl Scouts, which they've always, never the two shall meet, but now it turns out they're going to be, they're not going to be even co-ed troops. So that's a little interesting.
A little separate but equal there.
Well,
or whatever.
But how can you say you're not trying to, siphon off and pillage off like the Girl Scouts thing if like, okay, well, we're co-eding it, we're being more progressive, we're not just sending, boys out into the woods with, strange men. We're sending girls too. That makes it better, which, like I told you the last time, I had to go, camping, and I'm walking out there with a small boy, and the whole way it's cold, it's dark, I'm scared. And I say, how do you think I feel? I got to walk out of here alone. Why are you walking away, Joe? But yeah, I mean, it's like
a Kevin Spacey hour now.
I can't. I was very split second thought I'd do my House of Cards Kevin Spacey, but no, that's just
no.
I'll just do my impression of Kevin Spacey's career.
Thank you.
Will his career be part of the In Memoriam as far as the Oscars this year?
Probably not.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty shitty. But while talking about Girl Scouts, fun fact, mint cookies. The Girl Scouts mint second highest cookie seller every year of any cookie, second only to Oreos.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I did buy some Girl Scout cookies last week or 2 weeks ago because they stake out in front of the Stop and Shop like I did with my boys with the Boy Scouts. They get you coming in, they get you coming out. But I did not buy the mint one because I'm a communist. But I'm also a peanut butter lover, and I a sucker for peanut butter chocolate mix. And so I got the peanut butter ones, and I ate those alone.
Remember? Oh, did you?
Yeah, very much so.
I love it, and they started doing it a couple years ago, but there was one, and the Girl Scouts at the beginning tried to distance themselves and kind of shun it. But it was out in Colorado when recreational marijuana became legal. Set up her selling her wares
right outside the dispensary.
Cleaned up.
Oh, God.
Like literally
How do you not?
Cleaned up,
Oh, yeah. Capitalism.
Right. I don't know if it was really her idea or Stoner or the brother, but kudos to you kids. So.
Absolutely. You gotta, it's all about, what is it? Location. Yeah.
So that's it. That's, at one point, and I told you one of my sister's New Year's resolutions, she wants to do like 5 things every year that she hasn't done before. And I said, come on and do the podcast, So we can have her into one time to talk at length about the
Boy Scouts?
The Girl Scouts.
Ah, that.
She's a coordinator, trainer.
Of course.
I'm not 100% sure what she does, but I don't
It's kind of like my job.
I really don't know what
or
you
my
do either.
role in this podcast.
That I do know. You bring the laughs.
I get it.
You make the people happy.
I bring the laughs because I have the laugh sound effect on my computer there it is. That's an applause. Whatever. We don't have laughs.
You'll fix it in post.
I will. There it is. All of those people dead. That's dead people you're hearing.
But
anyway, so on to the next awesome topic.
On the next topic, as I was driving over here, what is it deemed now? The national crisis,
national emergency.
National emergency. This is not a test.
I like how the tweet of God said, "It's rare when you see a national emergency being declared by a national emergency."
So blow this. Still not being able to get Mexico to pay for the wall. Still not being able to get the House and Senate to pass funding for a wall in the 2 years in which the Republicans control both the House and the Senate. To avoid shutting down the government again, signed the latest appropriation bill that he didn't think had enough money for the wall. So now he is, man. And the absurdity of, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because it doesn't fucking matter. I was going to say, I don't know why he gets in front of a microphone and just spouts off absolute, not misinformation.
Lies.
Like lies.
Yeah.
He's saying it's like illegal border crossings at an all-time high when it's at a 20-year low. That the majority of people in the U.S. prisons are undocumented people here, undocumented, and there's less than 20%. I mean, these are things that are fact checked instantly. The scariest of scary things is he is doing this for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only, and they are Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, and Rush Limbaugh. I'd say 4, Ann Coulter, but she is. It's funny because he says, I haven't talked to her in a year, but I'm quite sure she, is very pleased with the job I'm doing, which she instantly went on the radio to say he's a complete idiot. He's doing this for his base. And, we didn't elect him because he had this is her talking that he was a governor of the biggest state or had a great, we knew what we were getting, but we didn't know we were getting, this much of an idiot. Like one of his biggest supporters, that he is truly getting his marching orders from, and the debate is he getting his marching orders from Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, and Rush Limbaugh, who he name checked at his Rose Garden announcement, or is it Putin? Like literally, he's being controlled by.
Can't it be both?
Yes, because on one hand, he's, and we're not even going to get into the Russia thing, right now. But as far as this goes, saying it's a national emergency, and over the last couple of weeks, I think it was like the state of California was one state that said, no, we're not sending our National Guard. We're pulling our National Guard away from the border. This is not a crisis. And what I love is, he's trying to throw into the mix, or his people are trying to throw into the mix, this crisis. It's also a humanitarian crisis. It's like the humanitarian crisis is a lot of these asylum seekers are fleeing war-torn places, and you're taking their children, putting them in cages, and they're dying. You are causing the humanitarian crisis. The other thing is, again, this isn't, Joe compiling stats or me just pulling numbers out of the air, but through the different government agencies that oversee this, most border crossings happen at legal ports of entry. Most drugs that come into the country aren't coming in through vast desert wasteland. They're coming in through legal ports of entry.
Get out of the city, cousin laddie.
And the worst thing is, it's like,
by the way, why didn't they deport Balky?
Yeah.
Why? We should have had tougher regulation. Well, he came in, legally, I guess.
Right. It's the chain migration from his. But seriously, it's like as he's talking about this thing from the Rose Garden, there was another. In Aurora, Illinois, another workplace shooting. And as we're doing the podcast, I'm not on the news checking it out, but as the boys and I are driving here, like they closed down, like they did soft lockdowns of schools within like a 3-mile radius because it was inside a big plant. But we're talking, we
know that the gun violence is a real crisis, which, by the way, I'm mimicking or parroting Alyssa Milano's tweet saying what Trump doesn't realize with declaring a national emergency based on this border crisis. He's also setting a precedent for future presidents to declare anything a national emergency, like health care and gun violence and, financial problems. Anything can be declared now as a national emergency, and you can siphon off funds from other programs that you see are either overfunded or shouldn't be funded as much. Well,
and that's the thing. Ever since he's floated this out here, which he floated it out there because they said to on Fox News. Fox and Friends one morning about a month ago during the shutdown said he can just declare this, which I guess technically he can because he did, but I guess you're only supposed to do it like a Pearl Harbor thing. Thanks, Biff. Like an imminent, real threat,
yeah,
like
right, a clear and present danger. There, obviously, this is going to be challenged in court. It probably will only be a speed bump because, they'll have to. I'm sure it'll be challenged in court and then overturned, and he will have final say. I'm sure that he'll veto the bill, and they won't have enough votes to override the veto. So there's that. But let's not forget, he is on a re-election campaign.
100%. And he's open about it. He was even in the Rose Garden talking about the 2020 election.
This is all. He's keeping a promise to some weird racist base, the Republican Party, about this border wall, and he's not backing down. He will not come out a loser. He played, quote unquote, the game as far as trying to go along with having Congress give him the money that he's demanding, going through the proper channels. But now he's just...
But he couldn't get that money from the GOP-controlled Congress for his first 2 years?
Right, exactly. So now he's just going to...
And Mexico hasn't forked it over yet?
Well, there is a language barrier there.
Okay.
Right. I don't think there is one person, or maybe one person in the Trump administration that can actually speak Spanish and ask for dinero. But who knows? So this is going to be quite the interesting little thing to see how it plays out as we kill each other with not only guns but also opioids and these delicious Tostitos.
Well, how can we be racist? We're eating Tostitos with queso dip.
I love Mexicans as I point to a Tostitos bowl.
They, what I love, it's like, yeah, so I didn't see that tweet from Milano, but people have been talking about this. And yesterday, she came out of a meeting, Nancy Pelosi, or as I like to call her,
Nancy.
And she was prepared for this. Obviously, it had been talked about all during the day. And she didn't beat around the bush, flat out said, well, you know, this president isn't always going to be president. And another president who has a different agenda might, for instance, feel guns. Nancy Pelosi, she didn't float out. She didn't elaborate or go on, but she definitely made it effing clear. If you go ahead and do this, go ahead and do this. But this, and she wasn't talking to him because there's no point in talking to him at all. Unless, again, you're Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, or Rush Limbaugh. She was talking to all the Republicans in the Senate, all the Republicans in the House. And it's like, you know what? If you back this, just think about it. Yeah, unfortunately, he has a shot at 2020. But you know what? One point or another, the pendulum is going to swing, and the more outrageous and the more presidential power that you want to give, unchecked, unfeathered power, you will not be able to, whether it's 2020, and I hope it is, or 2024. Somebody says, yeah, opioids is a crisis. The climate is a crisis.
Although, now that I'm thinking about it, there aren't any real anti-border wall lobbyists in Congress, whereas there's the NRA, among other pro-gun lobbyists in Congress. There is humongous pharmaceutical constituency as far as lobbyists go in Congress. So there's that to contend with as well.
There is, and there's huge money in it, but the groundswelling's already there. You're already having people be very outspoken on you know, the Democrat part of the fence talking about.
Well, they'll show them. You wait and see. You see the good will triumph over evil.
But Beto O'Rourke came right out and said, go ahead and build it. If I get in there, the first thing I'm doing is taking it down. So you want to waste all this money and effort. And then, you know, the other thing is, where does the money come from? Are you taking it away from military funding?
Right. Well, that's actually what they were saying. They were taking it away from the military and, I forget the other one. But it wasn't, they didn't say, like, you know, schools and orphanages or anything like that. It wasn't,
schools and orphanages don't have money to take away, Joe.
Touche.
But yeah, if it affects military readiness or perceived military readiness, I don't know how on board the military industrial complex is going to be with you taking money out of their pockets.
We'll see. Well, maybe it'll just sort of be robbing Peter to pay Paul down the way. So, you know, the wall will be paid for with money taken out of the military, and the military will then take money from this organization or this program, and then that program will then take
and
from
so
education.
on.
Right.
And then they'll steal from two friends, and then they're still from two friends.
Pretty much. So what else? You want to do something happy stuff?
Manafort? Right? Paul Manafort?
Who fucking cares, dude?
Well, no, I do, because the judge ruled that because he lied, which we all know, but luckily the judge came out and it was all sealed stuff, and the government had to show this is how we know he lied and when. This is why we are terminating his plea agreement, and this is why we're asking for, you know, the biggest sentencing. And it's only important because at this point, who is he protecting? And, you know, I think the Mueller thing is about to kind of wrap up, but in kind of a major way. I think from what people have said, and people like, you know, Gates, who has a new book out and stuff, there's still 5 sealed indictments, 5 other people with sealed indictments waiting to be served. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I can't imagine, you know. Well, we'll never know what Mueller really knows, but if those 5 indictments, we all hope, you know, have the names Jarrett, Don Jr., Ivanka, Blotus on them, and maybe Pence, you know. I mean, because again, in the time that Manafort was his campaign manager, this is where the most of the Russian stuff happened. And if you remember, there was a lot of people being floated out there, like Chris Christie for vice president. Mike Pence was on nobody's like top 20, like, the mock drafts. Like, he was on nobody's list. The only one who came in and said him was Manafort. Why? Like, why did Paul Manafort handpick Mike Pence out of a list that he wasn't even on? So,
very interesting.
I think he's up to his eyebrows in this. Anyways, so that's it. You didn't even have to get out the Trump whistle.
Woo!
So now, yeah, do we do self-indulgent or?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I do care.
You care about this podcast?
I really do.
Good for you. Oh, good for you. And how was the podcast?
I'm a professional. Oh,
Professional what? Oh, slam dunk.
Oh, you want to do it as Adam Sandler? Is that your way? So, for this week's Self-Indulgent Theater, I picked a classic, an oldie but a goodie, off the 1984 album by one of my favorite bands from 1984, Van Halen. I don't consider... they might have had a couple songs here or there, but Sammy Hagar is not Van Halen. David Lee Roth is Van Halen. Having said that, if you ever hear them now, it might be the worst, saddest ever.
Oh yeah, and I'm not a huge Van Hagar fan, but they have some good tunes. I'm sorry. I mean, it's a different sound. It's kind of like when Peter Cetera joined Chicago. Right now, I don't know. Wasn't Chicago go through like 700 iterations? I like the Peter Cetera sound.
Well, as I chew rudely.
No, that's fine.
I thought, well, what would really show Joe's voice acting skills more than the lyrical genius of the song "Jump"?
Yeah. So now what? What's Dancing Monkey doing for you this week? Ooh, ooh, ah,
ah. I had chosen somebody else, but I think your Adam Sandler would be pretty good.
Oh my God.
So with that said,
shit.
Here's Joe.
Line me up.
You are my wind up. You are my was it wind up monkey here to amuse me?
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. So without further ado, here's Joe doing "Jump" by Van Halen, as read by Adam Sandler.
I get up, and nothing gets me down. You got it tough. I seen the toughest all around. And I know, baby, just how you feel. You got to roll with the punches to get well thrill. Can you see me standing here? I got my back against the wrecking machine. I ain't the worst that you've seen. Oh, can't you see what I mean? Woo! Might as well jump. Jump! Might as well jump. Go ahead, jump. Jump! Oh, go ahead, jump. Who said that? Baby, how you been? You got this. You say you don't know. You won't know until you begin. Can you see me standing here? I got my back against wrecking machine. I ain't the worst that you've seen. Oh, can't you see what I mean? Might as well jump. No! Go ahead, jump. Might as well jump. Go ahead, jump. Jump.
Not a dry eye in the house. That might be the best one, the best song anyway. It's like when Bill Murray was first guest on the Daily Show, and who was the host? The original
Craig
host?
Kilborn.
Craig Kilborn used to do 5 questions, and Bill Murray is the first one to get all 5. And forevermore he goes, you can only tie Bill Murray.
As it should be.
As it should be. Yeah. So your "It's a Wonderful Life," Jimmy Stewart. That will always remain number 1 in all of our hearts. That was pretty fucking.
Oh, okay. Well, then, thank you very much.
What Adam Sandler like to throw into this week's funk sponsor. And now it's time for the funk sponsor.
Van Halen, the band. Van Halen, the guitarist. You could win Eddie Van Halen's guitar from WBCN. You could have Eddie Van Halen personally sign and give to you a Kramer Beretta electric guitar backstage at Van Halen's BC Entrum show in Worcester, August 14th. Plus, you'll get 2 tickets to see the show. And 50 runners-up win Van Halen's newest album, 5150. Just enter now. There's no purchase necessary at any Strawberries Records and Tapes location by August 8th. You can see the guitar, courtesy of Daddy's Junkie Music, on display now at the Framingham Strawberries. All thanks to Warner Brothers Records and the station that loves guitar stars. 104 FM WBCN.
So, on to sport. Gonna talk a little football. Gonna talk a little Colin Kaepernick. His settlement, his collusion case against the NFL was settled today. Mediated settlement, sealed, never to be publicly revealed what it is, but most NFL sources, put the settlement between $60 and $80 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like a whole day's worth of revenue.
Well, well done. But that's for a guy who, and I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous because if there was collusion, and there probably was,
There's no collusion.
at the same time, he was a backup quarterback. Like, how much revenue was he really going to make going on, even if this drama hadn't happened? Yeah, but he didn't want backup money. That's one of the problems. He was a backup with the 49ers when the whole taking a knee thing started, when he started the taking a knee thing. Rightfully so, 100% behind that. But he was a backup. He had a year on his contract that he asked to be released because he thought he was going to go and get another 4 or 5 year starting quarterback job. It never came. And there was a couple teams that almost took flyers on him. I mean, it was very public that the Baltimore Ravens were going to offer him something, and then his girlfriend at the time came out and said, well, their owner is just like a slave owner. It's like, and like even prominent ex-Ravens who had fought for Kaepernick to get this opportunity were like, what are you doing? And my thing is, if he really wanted to get a job back and he couldn't get a job, there are options. Like, and granted, I know going to the CFL isn't a glorious thing, but there was a great number of NFL people who, at the end of their careers, went up, played well, and then got brought back down. Or people like a Warren Moon or Doug Flutie who just killed it in the CFL. A few years ago, even Terrell Owens was trying to get back into football. He went as low as playing arena football, literally trying to prove that he could still play, that he could still run a 40 that fast, that he could still, have all the skill set. I think Colin Kaepernick knew his heart wasn't in playing football, or at the same time, if he went and he played in the CFL and didn't light it on fire, that he wasn't going to come back. So this whole thing, it's like going out of his way to not get a job so he could then say collusion. I'm not, good for the guy. I never met him. Like, him making this money, like you said, it's a day of their revenue. But, as far as that side of the football, that side of the thing, yeah, I mean, he wasn't a starting quarterback. Could he be a backup somewhere? Yeah, but backups make 1 to 2 a year. Like, the better backups make 1 to 2 a year. So you'd have to play 40 years. You'd have to have like Brady-like career longevity
Guess who's going on Dancing with the Stars next season?
maybe because the new football league that started last week, the AAF, Alliance for American Football, I think it is, that actually their games got aired on CBS and had better numbers than the NBA last week. Which is weird because they aired the first games and then they're going to air like the playoffs, but they're not doing the rest of it. Although the numbers were pretty good, it wasn't awful. Football. I mean, I saw a lot of highlights and clips. There's some people who can definitely play. I mean, it's probably somewhere between AA and AAA, like, football. They have some real names. Kaepernick had said he would take a job for $20 million in that league. So between the Nike and this, he's
Well played, sir. Well played.
So hey, good for him. And talking about people who have tons of money who aren't spending it, neither one of us are big baseball people outside of the Red Sox and
Yeah.
But there's a couple. What's going on in baseball right now is really interesting. There's a couple huge free agent household names like Brett Harper and Verlander who haven't been signed to teams yet. Spring training has officially started, and a couple of the big free agents, because these guys are looking for 10-year, $30 million a year
Like
deals.
Jeter kind of money.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And at this point, baseball's saying, no, we're not doing that. There's very few people we're going to do that for. And a couple prominent players, and they're right, are coming right out and saying there's a lot of teams in baseball that want to tank, that literally do not care about winning. And I can tell you, again, the second time we'll mention, Professor Ross Selwich on this podcast. But Ross has a friend, Eddie Epstein, who has written maybe 20 baseball books and like 4 or 5 NFL books, who was the assistant GM of both the San Diego Padres and the Baltimore Orioles. He still consults with a bunch of teams. This is back in the 80s when I met Eddie. And I remember back then him breaking down the economics. He was one of the founders of the sabermetrics movement. He was one of these number crunching, isn't interested in watching the game as much as he is crunching the numbers after the game. Like that's his big passion. And he said, I remember, 2 things when we talked about this, that most teams want to finish in second. Most owners would like to finish in second place of their division because you came so close. It piques fan interest. Next year's our year, man. And so you get the fans, in a frenzy about the possibilities and about the future. At the same time, you don't have your backup second baseman saying, we won the championship, I need to make twice as much money.
Yeah.
And the other thing I remember is, this is at the time when Roger Clemens signed some unthinkable amount of contract, which was like $5 million a year. Like, now a number one pitcher on a good team is $30 million a year. I remember him breaking it down because the Globe or the Herald had put, he gets like, if you broke down per pitch, he made like $1,500 per pitch that year. And my buddy Eddie, broke it down and said, okay, the Cleveland Indians are shitty. They're playing in front of 15,000, a game. It's a Wednesday night. And Clemens is in town and he's pitching. There's going to be 40,000 people in the stadium. There's going to be, another 25,000 people at, X number of the ticket, X number of parking, all this stuff. It's like, believe me, for every dollar that they're giving a baseball player, they're taking in 5. So, like you said, that's a whole day's revenue.
Right.
But what's interesting is where Major League Baseball doesn't have a salary cap, they also don't have a floor. So in hockey and in football, you have to spend to a league minimum. You can't. I mean, yeah, you can tank to get a better draft pick for a year, but you still have to spend X amount of money. You can't just roll a team out there, on
minimum wage.
Honestly, there are a couple baseball teams out there that are spending $30-40 million, where the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Cubs and stuff are north of $200 million. And so these big free agents, they're not saying, collusion because, but because he really can. It's like, no, if you want to come and play for $10 million and we'll give you a 2-year contract. But more and more teams, baseball just got crazy. It's the only sport that I know of that gives 10-year contracts. I mean, there's not a football player or a hockey. Maybe there's been a couple hockey players who's got like 7-8 year deals.
But even got the physical demands on a baseball player are far less than those of a football player, and the longevity and the lifespan of a baseball player is longer.
But if you're 25, you're and granted, there's exceptions to the rules. I get it, but your outfield speed at 25 versus 35 is a lot different. I mean, there's some skills you can probably still swing about all these things, but how many of these contracts are just dead? I mean, when A-Rod got suspended, like his last time, the people who were happiest were the Yankees because they're like, yeah, we don't have to pay him this.
But how many of those contracts are always going in renegotiations mid-contract?
No, baseball doesn't, and that's the thing. Like, I won't mention.
I'll shut up then.
I won't mention a certain football team because I pledged to not for a month. But that's something that happens a lot. Like if somebody wants to come back and play, can they take a hometown discount? Will they renegotiate down? Will to help the salary cap number or different things like that? Yeah, baseball. The players' union is so strong. And going back, the whole thing when Nomar actually got traded to the Texas Rangers for A-Rod. A-Rod wanted to come to Boston, and he was willing to renegotiate his contract and take less money. The Texas Rangers signed off on it. The Red Sox signed off on it. Major League Baseball signed off on it. The deal was announced. And then the Players Association came in and said, no, we can't set the precedent of one of our players taking less money off a contract. And that's why the only team that could swoop in that was willing to pay the A-Rod money, because the Texas Rangers, which was floundering, I mean, a sub 400 team.
Who was running the Texas Rangers at the time?
Fun fact. Yes, a guy who was famous for bankrupting many businesses he ran.
Donald J. Trump.
But yes, no, another guy who became a Republican president who was well known for bankrupting every business he touched. That would be W.
Hey. Right.
Or as we like to now call him, the Candy Man. But yeah, so with baseball, it's just interesting that now players are starting to say, it's like, hey, it's not fair. They're not giving us $10 million, $30 million, like people wanting $250,000, third or $1 billion contracts for a sport that's waning.
Yeah. I actually met your friend Eddie Epstein, and he was a really nice guy. I was back in, way back. We were actually at Padre Stadium, or whatever they called it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So funny, after I met him, I did read like one of his books. It was like pretty awesome, but it wasn't a baseball book. It was about like his high school years, and it was about like how he was kind of goofing off a lot, and he compiled a bunch of these letters that his parents had to write to the school, and they were called notes from Epstein's mother.
see what you've done there.
Man, do I suck. Go on.
No, because I'm like, I don't remember this book.
All right.
But you did meet Eddie down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he Eddie, fascinating guy. He got a master's degree in mathematics, and he came up with his master's thesis was how baseball salaries should be figured.
He's kind of one of the big first Moneyball guys.
Yes. Yeah. And his hobby was this. So he was a mathematician working in the government.
Yeah.
But like I said, so his master's degree thesis was how baseball salaries should be factored in. He had a late night talk show, like just on Sunday nights, a 2-4-hour talk show once a week, on sports. And the Orioles got wind of him, and for like 3 or 4 years, Eddie did two things. He created a scouting book that became an annual book, and he would rank I think it was like the 100 best minor league prospects, and he had the full cybermetrics breakdown on them, ranking their potential and all these different kind of categories. It is something he created. He had this talk show. The Orioles got wind of him and brought him in for like 3 or 4 years to work with them in contract and arbitration hearings. He really wanted the assistant GM job, and he didn't get it. And it was like always a bridesmaid. And after a couple years, he said, well, fuck it. He ended up going and sitting on the other side of the table for 1 year, working with agents, repping players, making the argument. And he was so good, the Orioles made him the assistant GM the next year. And then when Larry Lucchino went from Baltimore to the Padres, that's when he went out to San Diego, because like half the Baltimore office left to take over the Padres at 1 year, probably just a couple of years before we got to California. And yeah, so it was interesting. Eddie had to give up doing that series of books once he was actually working because you can't be writing a scouting book that all teams use when you're working for one team. So he took his other passion, and started writing books on, the NFL.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so a fascinating guy.
No relation to Theo.
No relationship to Theo, right? But two guys this Eddie Epstein is, maybe 10 years older than Theo Epstein. So Theo Epstein, and they had crossed paths somewhere. Like Theo Epstein had worked in the same system that Eddie had done, and had worked under Eddie for like a couple years. And even now, so Eddie consults with a couple NFL teams and a couple MLB teams.
Wow.
Fascinating guy. I wasn't planning on going off on that tangent, but aren't we all the better for it?
We are.
All right. Now we get into the gold. Video game talk. Do you see the article I sent you about Blizzard?
Yeah.
Pretty shitty.
I didn't really read it, but I do know that they, despite record profits, laid off 800 people.
Yeah, like almost like 10+% of its workforce.
Yeah. Fuck them.
Yeah, record profits, and
share of the wealth. Nah.
Yeah, well, we
skipped over Amazon,
which is who don't pay any taxes at all.
Right
now, they're trying to hold New York City hostage.
Well, they are a religion.
They really?
Okay,
well, I don't know. I'm worshiping a lot of the programming, so maybe. But but that's just really shitty. And it's like one of those things. It's like, I kind of don't want the boys playing Overwatch now. Like that's gonna effing matter.
I know, seriously. It's a shitty practice, but there's a lot of shitty stuff going on. Nintendo's done shitty things.
Yeah, Telltale
Konami,
Games this year.
Yeah.
Done really shitty.
I mean, but this is just one. And again, these are big companies. We were talking about like EA doing some kind of shady things earlier. But these big corporations are, by the way, corporations. Like they're looking at bottom line. They're because Blizzard is owned by Activision, I believe. Or maybe, right? Yeah, something like that. So they're humongous, but it's a shitty thing, and hopefully those fine people will land on their feet and maybe start their own independent company. And it's funny because Activision was started by 3 guys who were getting fucked over by Atari.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because they were like the main programmers. Like all those really great games on Atari, like Enduro, like that racing game, like all those really, like Pitfall is an Activision game. Like all of those really good, well-programmed Atari games that really pushed the limits, and they really knew how to get the most out of the Atari. Those were all programmed by people who eventually went on to form Activision, and now they're Big Brother and,
No, I mean, it just sucks. It because both of our offspring aspire to work in the video game industry.
Suckers.
One as a composer and one as a tester. So, one's aiming a little higher.
Hey, you know what?
Other.
You got to start in the mailroom to become a CEO.
But yeah, it's pretty shitty. On the other hand, other video game news. Did you see that a Mario cartridge from 1985 just sold at auction? I want to say for $105,000.
Yeah, I briefly saw it. So this particular sealed box of Super Mario Brothers from '85, I think, was distributed only as part of the Nintendo test marketing in New York City. So before Nintendo hit the streets in the States, they test marketed in New York, and I think this particular copy of Super Mario Brothers was part of that. So this is indeed a rare item to be in that good of a condition and to be so hard to find. But 105, that's usually not one guy. Like that's like it could be a group of investors trying to maybe flip it later on, you know. So who knows what's going on. But yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, video games are cool. And Nintendo had their little Nintendo Direct this week. You probably didn't know about that. So instead of doing like their doing the once a year thing at the E3 like Sony and Microsoft, Nintendo kind of does their own quarterly or regular, maybe bi-monthly, whatever, online video updates of what's new and coming out in the Nintendo lineup. And they did like a little Nintendo Direct where they promoted Super Mario Maker 2, which you make your own Super Mario Brothers game. They have it for the Wii U.
Oh, I've seen the boys upstairs playing that before.
Yeah, so the Wii U, didn't really sell well, but now but they made really good first-party games, and now all of those types of games are being ported or adapted or sequeled over to the Switch, which is doing very well. So yeah, Super Mario Maker 2, which is coming out in a couple of months, you basically create your own Super Mario Brothers levels in various styles of Super Mario Brothers. So it could look like the original Super Mario Brothers, or like another like Super Mario Brothers 3, which came out a little bit later, or up to like the new 3D Super Mario type graphics. So it's fun, and you save your levels, you post them online, and you challenge other players to play your levels. And they rate your levels based on how hard they are, and it's a lot of them are very brutal. A lot of them are just like trolling, awful.
Wow, what a shock!
Yeah, messes. But a lot of them are very fun and challenging, and it's like, free programming for Nintendo.
It's hard not to see that as really, hey, we're gonna let you do this, and secretly,
But you are basically creating your own Mario Brothers levels and games with this software. So it's with the touch screen. It's like ingenious. It's very intuitive. It's nice. So yeah, and then they're also coming out with Nintendo's coming out with a new Zelda game, which is an old Zelda game. It's a Switch version of an old Game Boy Zelda game called Link's Awakening. It's probably one of the most popular versions of Zelda for the Game Boy that came out. And it's beloved and all that. And now they've completely updated the graphics. It's like a new game, but with the same storyline and same layout. So for Zelda nerds, that's exciting. For you, not so much.
And what were you playing when I walked in today?
Oh, Tetris 99, which is really, really fun. I like Tetris, but
I like beer.
I like beer. You like Tetris? So what this version is, it's a free download for your Switch. So if you have a Switch and you have the online thing, good for you. Oh, good for you. But what it is you're playing Tetris against 98 other online competitors. It's a battle royale for Tetris. So the point of the game is you play Tetris on your screen, but at the same time you're seeing miniature versions of live feeds of 98 other Tetris games you're competing against. And there's a system in place where competitors can target you and try to attack you by, if they do well, like if you get a Tetris, which is 4 rows at once, you can basically attack other players. You're adding junk to other players, either randomly or it's kind of hard to explain. But say you get 4 lines, then you can add 3 lines of junk rows to one of your opponents. And then so at the bottom of their stack, it automatically goes up 3 lines. So they have
there's like missing pieces.
Yeah, so right, there's like one row of like missing pieces where they have to like slide, one of the long Tetris pieces in. So there's that element. So and people are attacking you, and you can be attacked by 4 people at once, which, in some videos is pretty awesome. But in Tetris, it could get pretty crazy. But it's like the music's kicking. It ramps up as it gets higher and higher, and you level up. I don't know how that works as far as like making your level go up. Like I don't know how that makes you a better competitor. Maybe that makes your attacks more effective as you play along. But the whole point is
just impresses the ladies.
It does. It does. The hashtag dampons. What was that? I got up to finishing level in 6th place. So I was pretty up there. I was pretty proud of myself, patting myself on the back. I broke my arm, patting myself on the back there. But it's fun. It's if you like Tetris and you want to see how good and fast and crazy you can get playing against 98 other people at once, give this a try. It's free. It's literally like if you have a Switch, you just download it, and there are no ads or anything weird or goofy. It's just you play Tetris, and it's fun. It's a good time killer. Not like Resident Evil 2, which is a fantastic time killer.
It is. I beat the game this week, and
hashtag damn Joe.
5 hours and 2 minutes, which is only an hour and 32 minutes away from unlocking unlimited ammo. So I'm going to have to go back through. It's a massive game. Like when you think about the schematics of these games and the storyboards and like the size of the places that you have to go and the depth of,
like you said last week, you look at the credit sequence and there's hundreds of names,
right?
And rightfully so.
And I don't know the game enough to know. Yeah, I can go and get this thing, but I don't really need it in the grand scheme of things. And rounding up, to get the Magnum gun, for instance, you have to get this one thing on one side of the universe and then go all the way back and get this other thing and then go to a third place to unlock it. It's like, yeah, that's a half hour that, because I'm looking forward to getting to the unlimited ammo thing where that's when games are fun, when you can take your time and just shoot everything and just, I want to make sure there's not a living zombie in Raccoon City.
Yeah, Raccoon.
Nobody knows what I'm talking about except you and Chris Berry.
Well, think about when I'm talking about video games and literally nobody knows what I'm talking about. So
yes, but you're dropping knowledge. And I, for one, and Floor appreciate it. So do we want to do a random no, enough video talk for 1 week?
Video games are done for this week.
What are you watching?
What am I watching? That is I'm glad you asked that question. That's my best Matt Whitaker. I'm glad you asked that question, and I'll be happy to answer it. What am I watching this week? Oh, what is there to watch?
Your 5 minutes are up.
Yeah, okay, seriously. You know what? Last night, I tried watching Solo. Tried.
What do you mean tried?
I fell asleep halfway through. And I just didn't go back to it.
How far did you get?
Let's see. I said halfway through, so I think.
Did you meet Chewbacca yet?
Yes. So yeah, I got to when I think I got to when they blew the heist, that first heist, the train heist, like right after that. That's when I kind of. Oh no, I got to when they met up with the girl that he left behind at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
So and then they have to go on that other thing. That's when
to make up for the first time.
Right. That's when I kind of checked out or fell asleep. But I'll get back to it.
Okay. Me. Watched a documentary.
Oh, it's all about you.
Watched a documentary called Identical Triplets. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Do you know anything about it?
They were separated at birth, and they just kind of randomly found each other.
It is one of the more, and I love documentaries, one of the more mesmerizing, captivating, fun, awful, oh my fucking God, dark, ugly, what kind of fucking world do we live in documentary.
Yeah, is it like one of those things where the hospital had a lot to do with their separation?
The agency. And it's like, honestly, if I didn't see this documentary, if I didn't read about the people who were in it, if I didn't kind of follow it up, I'd almost it's something out of an awful movie. It's something out of a clandestine,
like
Illuminati,
dystopian.
like literally like an Illuminati. Awful. It involves Yale University. You're welcome, All-Star Tommy. You heartless Yale bastards. But I won't ruin where it twists. But what's interesting is one guy decides he's going to go to this community college, like 3-4 hours away from his family, and he shows up, and this is like 1980. And he gets out of his beat up car and he is a fucking rock star. It's something that freaks him out, like out of a movie. People coming over and high fiving him, hugging him, girls coming up and kissing him. It's like, oh my God, and calling him by the wrong name. And he gets into his like dorm room and he's completely freaked out. There's a knock on the door and there's a guy who's like, oh my fucking God. Grabs him and goes, you have to come with me. And they run to a payphone. And this guy's twin brother had gone to that school the year before and wasn't coming back, like dropped out. And everybody was so psyched that he decided to come back. And his last year's roommate says, oh my God. And they get on the telephone and, they were in a payphone and they decide right then and there, they're going to drive 3 hours to go meet his brother.
Wow.
And they, New York Times, comes like, an article in the New Yorker magazine, all of this one. And that's when it turns out there's a third brother. And
that's where you should stop talking because I probably want to see it now.
But yeah, it's fun. It's really, and these guys are so like rock star early 80s New York City, and it's fun to see them on like the Phil Donahue show.
Oh right.
And in front of like, I don't remember Phil Donahue show enough to remember, was it always in front of like 2,000 people? Was this a special thing type thing? Yeah, completely. And yeah, I mean, obviously about what I've already said, something happens, but man, it's like if you saw it in a movie, like the Bourne Supremacy, or like the Bourne trilogy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more fucked up than that.
Wow.
So
okay, sold.
Highly, highly, highly recommend. I don't remember if I saw that on demand or Netflix or Amazon. Don't praise the machine. But I know I didn't pay for it and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Identical triplets.
Check it out.
There you go.
All right. Well, fantastic, Jacques. I know you're parenting.
Yes.
And you like giving tips.
I don't really, but I feel the obligation to the public at large because I'm doing such a fucking awesome job as you and everybody can see.
Well, big tipper over there. Why don't you drop some knowledge on our listeners? What's your parenting tip of the week?
Well, this is February vacation week.
Tis.
So both my boys are home. And really, I suggest my parenting tip would be lower their fucking expectations. I've already told them that.
Well, they want to be video game testers. I think that's low enough.
But I've already informed them that no, you're not going to be sitting here for the next like 7 days playing video games all day. I'm going to be sitting here for the next 7 days.
Well, that's on account of the knee or
right.
the ligament or whatever excuse you came up with.
But yeah, so I've let them know. It's like, it's like any other. They only get the video games on the weekend. Yes, there'll be a couple days they could do this, but they're going to have to earn it. And again, it's like when they say, "Oh, the teacher said we don't have any homework." It's like, okay, that's what the teacher said. I have a different set of rules, and so they will. They have to do like a half-hour reading a day. There's a math thing. A login thing for the school that they can log into. There's a reading thing that they can log into, and of course piano. So they'll have to do all those things. But yeah, a lot of their friends are like taking not a lot, but we know some people taking trips.
Yeah,
and it's like they're like, well, how come we're not going on vacation? And I pointed to our pool outside, and I'm like, because we can either go on vacation or the same amount of money, we can open up that pool in 10 weeks and you'll have it the whole summer. So, you want to go to Great Wolf Lodge for a few days, or do you want your own pool for the summer? You have to make
Great
up
Wolf
your mind.
Lodge. Great Wolf Lodge.
Yeah.
And in the summer, you can have the pool anyway.
Shut up. They can hear you. You know, that's not concrete.
You can have both.
But what about you? You got a week of vacation coming up with the
Damn it.
boys.
I knew you were going to try to bring me into this parenting tip thing. And
What are you going to do with the boys over the next week?
Tetris? I'm going to ignore them. Is essentially I've been doing for the past, what was it? Wow, 19 years. Yeah, 19
I
years.
say it's working out.
Yeah. No, nobody's working out in this house. I don't know. I think, we'll probably go see Lego Movie 2. You know, isn't that a thing that people do?
How about Alita Battle Angel?
Oh, no, nobody cares. I mean,
No.
I've seen it looks cool, but like we're not like action movies.
It's funny because the every advertisement I hear, it's like, from the producers of Avatar, must see in the theater. I'm like, yeah, that'd probably be cool to see in the theater, but I'm gonna Redbox it.
Yeah, I mean, you're really put must in like a lot of quotes there. You know, we don't have to see it in the theater. You would prefer that we see it in the theater, but we don't must see it in the theater.
All right. I have a home theater, or so the people at Best Buy told me.
Yeah. So, and my younger son is home for the week, and my older son Connor is he's still got the online stuff going on. So.
Right.
So
college doesn't have the February vacation.
Exactly. So he's got, and he's also in a rehearsal for a play at Emmanuel College.
Oh, what play is this?
Gentleman's Guide to Murder, or Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, or something like that. It was a musical. No, was it a musical? Yeah, I think it's a musical. I don't even know. I actually saw it on Broadway, and yeah, we went to New York a few years ago. We saw like 3 different plays and musicals. Or 4, was it 3 or 4?
And like Solo, you fell asleep through halfway through. all of them.
No. I actually enjoyed most of them.
But you didn't enjoy Solo? Is that what you say?
I probably would have if I wasn't so darn tired.
Okay.
I'm a working man now. Working like a dog for the boss man.
Yeah.
Whoa. Working for the company. Whoa, yeah.
We're not doing Billy
Love
Joel.
in an elevator.
We're not doing Aerosmith either. So I think that wraps it up.
Great. Thank God.
I hope everybody has a fantastic week.
I do as well.
Any thoughts or suggestions, you can tweet them at Carnival Podcast, OptiGrabber.
I'm not saying yes or no. You figure it out.
And the Jacques 4, or on Facebook at Carnival Podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you people already know that,
Of course you do.
Keep the fat shaming coming, please.
Right. We love trolling on the internet. It's what we do.
It's what we do best.
Actually, I don't do anything on the internet. I run both the Facebook.
Porn.
Yeah. No, as far as our accounts go, I do absolutely. I put 0 effort. I wish I could put less than 0 effort into our social media. I'm actually hoping one day to get off of social media. I got to admit, I like Twitter. It's probably because I don't know most of the people.
Right.
When I go to Facebook, I'm like, oh, I know these people. Oh, I don't want to share what I'm doing, because then if I see them in real life, they're gonna.
No, no, I'm not. I've never got on the book face or the
right.
The snap face or whatever else it's been referred to as.
Yeah,
yep, but that's it. But
great.
Last thoughts?
I think I'm all out of thoughts. I don't think I ever had one thought in this podcast, but I will say this, Jacques. Don't forget.
Might as well jump!